the talk show for family office and high net worth professionals. I'm Chantel Leeson, your host, and Tony Katrup is my co-host. Tony, say hello.
Hi, how's everybody doing today?
All right, we have a wonderful lineup of guest speakers for you today. Jason Bauer, Next Generation, Kevin Gutman is going to talk about reverse mortgages for the ultra high net worth, and attorney Mike Whitty is going to talk about family office and family-owned businesses. Now, before we get started, a few housekeeping rules. Your mic will be muted and your camera will be turned off until the end of the show. And at that time, if you're able to stay, there'll be a question and answer phase with all the guest speakers. If there's nothing else to go, we'll go right into this. I want to introduce our first guest expert, and that's Jason Ma. Jason is a CEO and chief mentor. I have that correct, right, Jason? He's a chief mentor for 3EQ and CBO, and he's also a family office advisor. Jason is also the author of Young Leaders, which you can find on Amazon. He's a rainmaker, and I'll turn it over to Jason. Thank you for coming, Jason.
Thank you. Author of Young Leaders 3.0, very privileged and honored, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me to your inaugural show. So hopefully we're gonna have some fun here. It's early morning in Silicon Valley, 8 o'clock, not exactly morning bird and night hour, but I'll do my best. So, and so fire away, Chantel.
All right, well, tell me about yourself and tell us about you and what you do with your 3E.
Sure, 3EQ, THREEEQ. The number 3 is taken by someone, so I have to spell it out. 3EQ is one of the 2 companies that I focus on. So besides my own faith, family, friends, health, culinary delights, and fine wine, those are important to me as well. My business are 2 companies, and I got a very promising tech company that's super, super exciting. That thing's going to be at least, God willing, right? It's going to be at least a decacorn in a due course. And now in this forum, I want to kind of talk more about what it takes to mentor next generation leaders. So next gen pretty much includes, the Gen Z, high school kids, college kids, university kids, to those young adults that are working, all the way to middle-aged CEOs that run family offices or corporations, right? I got students within that realm. Why is it important to me? 14 years ago, and I've been in industry for about 38 years since I graduated from Berkeley, UC Berkeley College of Engineering with an engineering degree back in 1984. My favorite bad joke is that I look like I graduated high school, but I'm actually a tail end boomer. I'm that old, right? So I'm ancient, I'm 1,000 years old. And in my technology career as a initial engineer, as a senior executive, especially tech sales and marketing, working for large companies, small companies, co-founder, an entrepreneur, exited both sides of the table, right? So as a senior executive, entrepreneur, more on the global sales, international sales and marketing strategy, and also as an investor. And I've been in Silicon Valley for 47 years. So I've seen how Sand Hill Road runs. I've been to Sand Hill Road, which pretty much controls trillions of dollars in the economy with all the VCs. And I've seen how all the way from pre-seed, seed to late stage exit public companies run. And I'm very privileged to get invited to a lot of family offices, summits and events and conferences to speak, to talk about investment, talk about mentoring the next gen, talk about much about the mindset and soft side on human beings, right? Whether you're leading generation that are boomers primarily. And you guys, some of you guys might know that about $65 trillion, about 60 to 70 trillion dollars are going to get transferred to the next gen within families within the next 2-3 decades. It's a big sum, right? Now, along the way, I have become, over the past 14 years, on top of my tech career, I've noticed that there was a dearth in high quality next gen leaders. And I feel almost obligated to do something about that. My previous company was an ed tech company. My previous company was an ed tech company we solve certain problem. It's a SaaS model, software as a service company. I merged that company, international merger, with an American company, which was a chain of learning centers that focused quite a bit on college counseling, elite college counseling, on SAT, ACT test prep. Sounds familiar, parents? Right. Academic enrichment, summer camps, and all that. And we became super experts when it comes to Ivy League and elite college planning, application admissions, process guidance. But I'm also real big on holistic, right? What can I do to really uplift the kids, lift up the kids so that their leadership skills, their leadership coaching, life coaching, career coaching, integrated with college counseling. So make them powerful, as effective as possible in the personal operating system. And so I left my previous company during, post-merger for, after 6 years, and founded 3EQ because I want my Saturdays and Sundays back, right? Working in the previous company, I had to work full-time on the weekends, not so fun. And I left them about 11 years ago. Today, I'm much more selective when I take on clients that are primarily, families run by powerful CEOs or C-suite leaders. I tend to attract these people, and they got kids that are still on the payroll. And my latest student, in fact, it's a prominent family office, single family office CEO, and she's off to doing other things as well. It's so funny, Chantal. I spoke at their event twice in Dubai, right? And then suddenly she raised her hand, Jason, I want to become one of your students, right? So what I noticed is that between high school kids, they care about college admissions, right? But for the CEOs, they care about, it could be family office CEOs, or corporate CEO, or some senior executives, right? They just care about, Jason, why don't you kick me in the ass, excuse my French, but optimize me, maximize me. I just want to be as effective as possible. CEOs are like wolves, right? They're wolf pack. They're already very aggressive. Exactly. And the best ones are actually very compassionate, very empathetic as well. I think it's just a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun. If I could impact and influence and inspire and uplift and help people achieve the greatest outcomes in the life stage. High school kids is about college admissions. College and university kids are about career path, first job, activity, academics, right? Boyfriend, girlfriend, stress and anxiety management. It's actually very prevalent in college. You guys know that. Yeah. And once they're working 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whether they work for a third-party company or work for a family business or work in a family office, I'm sure all of us, we care about, uplifting our own career, achieving better, greater business, kind of business, career, personal success, correct? Once exactly. You want to become more successful. I go real deep through my one-on-one coaching and mentoring. I get to know students so well, it's almost scary. I get to know my students more than the parents know them in some ways. And I get to know these mature C-suite leaders as my students more than maybe the partners know them in some ways. Why? It's actually very simple. Strategic triangle. Student, trusted third-party mentor, a parent or partner. Without that third party, the equation is not complete. The full potential is not fully unleashed. You know what I'm saying? So it drives me. I think that creating better next-gen leaders while helping the leading gen, it's just part of my obligation. It's just a lot of fun. That's a core of what I do in my family business.
Okay, I'm going to ask you something a little bit off that. I know that you were a member of the B20, which is part of the G20. Tell me what that means. Tell the audience what that means and what impact that has on businesses going forward.
Absolutely. It connects to what I do quite a bit. I'm sure that most of you know about the G20, right? And the G20 is the world's leading international forum that connects and brings together all the presidents and prime ministers of the top 20 economies, right? President Biden, Chairman Xi in China. It's actually Secretary General Xi, not president. And the EU presidents, Japan Prime Minister, et cetera. So the top 20. Plus a few plus ones, right? Singapore is always one of a few plus ones, sometimes Netherlands, sometimes Spain, sometimes a few. So, and I've been involved, I got invited to join them in 2014. And I've been sitting on the Future of Work and Education Task Force since 2014, since the G20, B20 Australia. The B20 is the G20's official dialogue forum for the entire global business community. Okay. Yes. And that means that technically we represent all of your companies, right? We represent, SMN. We represent my fellow speakers' companies. I represent my company. And the main product is that we push recommended policies to the G20 to the presidents and prime ministers, and we capture the attention of their departments in the US, of the ministries, right? So, and the Future Work and Education Task Force is about one of 6 or 7 task forces, plus some working council, depends on the personality of each host country. And I've been through Australia, Turkey, China, Germany, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Italy. This year is hosted by Indonesia, post-COVID, and I'm looking forward to visiting in person again. I see how the world works, and part of what I see, guys, is that there's a dearth. I mean, there's a whole bunch of issues, right? And we have different categories. What I do notice is that it's very consistent. It kind of frustrates me as well. I send so many kids to all the 8 Ivies, right? Like, you know, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Columbia, Penn, Dartmouth, Brown, Cornell, Stanford, MIT, Berkeley, etc. And I help so many people that are working adults. I still see higher education and what the employers want, whether it's corporations, employers, and what at higher education on average produce. There's a gap there, skills gap. It's still not there yet, because what employers want is, you know, it's really employable skills. I want to hire you for skills. I want to hire you to produce. I want to hire you to produce in a job, right? So there's a even some Ivy League schools are not perfect, right? My younger daughter just graduated Wharton, you know, it's the #1 business school. She's both what I call a scholar and a jock, and she's a happy, compassionate kid. And I could see her becoming a tech CEO in the future, right? No need to follow my family business because each family is different, correct? But she's going to become a software engineer first to get deeper in technology, so she could kind of schmooze with engineers, blah, blah, blah. But I guess because of communication skills and soft skills, coupled with the hard skills and the leadership skills here, is very, very valuable, right? That's part of what I do. Help people achieve the greatest outcomes in the life stage, help them beef up what I call their visionary story, soft skills, state of mind, strategies, execution, the 4S framework along the way, uplift their pragmatic, meaning results-oriented, practical, emotional, social leadership intelligence. That's what it, so you leader, you higher impact, you make more money, right? So the B20, I get informed quite a bit. I see how the world works. I see where the world's going from a real big picture standpoint, all the way down to the micro. When I coach one-on-one or group coaching, my student in front of me or the next gen in front of me, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Now, I want one more question for the next person. What impact will that have on the startup or new businesses and family-owned businesses? And looking forward to what business they should look for in the future?
Impact for the family business. I think, okay, now from a family business standpoint and from a family office standpoint, okay, I'm talking about single family office, not multi-family offices, okay? So from a family business standpoint, I think one of the most important things is that for the next gen especially, okay, for the next gen is really to, in addition to your hard skills, right? I mean, I get invited to speak in family office summits quite a bit, right? Different places, ultra net worth. And my colleagues already does a great job talking about wealth preservation, different strategies and tactics, talk about wealth enhancement, risk mitigation, strategies and tactics. I don't have to talk much about that. If I get invited to speak, which I do, in addition to the soft side, talk about, say, you know, elite family trends or elite investment strategies, I'll be very happy to talk about that from an angel, from a venture capital, from a family office standpoint, because I see quite a bit, correct? Now, but the soft side, very important for all of us, whether we are next gen or leading gen, really work on our resilience. The world is turbulent and ever changing. The world for the next 10 years, 20 years is going to be ever more turbulent and ever changing. So do we want to dig a hole and stuck our head in it like a chicken, or do we want to be a leader? Work on our resilience, work on our resourcefulness or adaptability. Some of this vocabulary we use in a B20 policy recs as well, okay? Work on our tenacity, our determination.
I'm sorry, Jason, I'm just gonna need to interrupt and be the bad guy here. Sure. Because we need to move on to our next segment, but the words I heard you leave us with were resilience and resourcefulness and, you know, thanks very much.
Tenacity, 5 more seconds.
Tenacity, yeah.
5 more seconds. The smart leaders also are compassionate and, you know, with wisdom and integrity. Those are very important. part of a core soft skills with other soft skills wrapped around that. So I ran out of time. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. I'm going to go to our next person. On question, Jason, will you be able to stay with us for the question and answer at the end of the session?
Very happy to. Very happy to.
Great.
Excellent. Well, let's move on.
I will have some questions too.
All right, I will too. Let's go on to Kevin Gutman. Kevin's going to talk to us about reverse mortgages. Kevin Gutman, by the way, I'm going to tell a little bit about Kevin's background. Kevin is he's a certified reverse mortgage professional. He's one of 191 in the entire country who have that designation. He's also the author of with the Swiss Army Knife for Retirement Cash Flow, Relax in Retirement, and Freedom and Confidence. And you can get them all on Amazon. I'm going to stop at this point. Kevin, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Chantel.
Tell us what you do with reverse mortgages. Tell us about this.
You know, for a long time, reverse mortgages have had a bad reputation, and therefore they've been maligned, misrepresented, underutilized, but it's a powerful retirement tool. And what we're seeing, Chantel and Tony, is today's savvy retirees are sophisticated, well-read, proactive. They do their homework, and they're finding that reverse mortgages aren't for broke or desperate people. So what I ask people, listen, if there were a proven resource that's been around for over 60 years that allowed you to increase your cash flow, reduce your retirement risk, preserve your assets, improve liquidity, add new dollars back into your retirement savings tax-free, would you want to learn about it?
I think that also, yes. Let me step one step further. How is that benefiting the person who's already rich, who has a $10 million house? How does reverse mortgage help that person?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I find a lot of times, Chantel and Tony, with wealthy people, they don't have that many options for tax-free retirement. There's really only 4: Roth IRA, permanent life insurance that's properly structured, health savings account, and reverse mortgage. And what I find is when they have their home paid for or a lot of equity in their home, their equity is earning 0 return on investment. It drives them crazy. And they can't access their equity without a mandatory monthly mortgage payment, either a HELOC or a monthly payment. So what we do is we help them get a reverse mortgage line of credit where they can access on a $10 million property up to $4 million in home equity. There's no restriction on how they can use their funds. So some people buy a second home, some people help their kids, or grandkids, or help charity. So basically, it's wide open how they can use the money. They might buy a new business or whatever. But the point is they can unlock or unfreeze that equity and use it however they wish.
Well, let's go into a little more detail about that. What are some of the things they can and cannot do with that reverse mortgage?
Really, the only restriction they have is they can't purchase an annuity because, in effect, they're already annuitizing their home equity, right? They can turn it into monthly payments, line of credit, or they can get a lump sum. So as long as somebody's 55 years or older, they can convert a portion of their equity from their primary residence into tax-free dollars. The other thing that's important to note is these loans are non-recourse loans. And what that means is basically the borrower is shifting responsibility of repayment from themselves to the home. The only recourse the lender has to recover their funds is against the house, not the homeowner.
Well, let's ask another question about that. Let's say for this person who has a $10 million house, so they go up to a $10 million house, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And the most they can take out is how much?
About 40%. It depends upon the age of the youngest borrower, but 40% is a conservative number. So think of it this way. They can really become their own bank, right? So
Yes.
They've got all this equity locked up. Instead of qualifying for this money, once they qualify, they don't need to requalify. So it's very easy to qualify for a reverse mortgage. So now they've got access to all this money, however much it is, 1 to 4 million, we'll say, depending upon the value of the home and the age of the borrower. They can use that money however they wish. The line of credit can function as a reserve fund, has a built-in guaranteed growth rate. The line of credit cannot be frozen, unlike a HELOC. The line of credit cannot be frozen, canceled, reduced, payment demanded. The term of the loan, they can't outlive it. I mean, it's just a beautiful tool, like I said, that's been underutilized and overlooked. And a lot of people have avoided it because reverse mortgages historically have had bad press.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people like myself, we thought reverse mortgages was like a last opportunity for retirement, but it's beyond that. So a person can they use that money to buy a franchise?
Yes.
So there are a lot of opportunities for people with reverse mortgages. Tell us some other things about reverse mortgages and what are some of the intended outcomes you expect from reverse mortgages, but particularly upper high net worth.
Yeah, I wrote a book, the Swiss Army Knife Retirement Cash Flow. It's basically 32 stories of how people have used equity in their homes to improve their lives in 5 areas: housing, cash flow, medical, dream, and legacy. So let me tell you a couple stories. I met with a couple. They'd moved back to, I live in Colorado. They moved back to Colorado to be close to family. The husband wasn't in the best of health. He wanted to be sure his wife was going to be okay. Okay, meaning she'd live in a house, maintenance-free home, no stairs. She could live there, age in place, no monthly payment. And so before we closed, it was just before Christmas, I said, okay, as long as you live here, pay the property taxes, homeowner insurance, maintain the house, you can stay to age 150. Now, this is the FHA version of this loan. But anyway, 5 months later, the husband passes. I get a phone call. And the wife says, introduces herself. And I say, yeah, I remember. Of course, I remember you. And she says, well, you told us that we could live in our house as long as we maintained it. It was our primary home, paid the property tax, insurance, etc. And there's no payment. Is that right? I said, yeah, that's right. She goes, well, that's the only way I can stay in my home. Now, that may not be a case for a wealthy person, but think about it this way. Somebody can actually buy a house that better suits them in this stage of life. They can double their purchasing power or buy at half price, however you think about it, and have no mandatory monthly mortgage payment. That's a big deal. I have a wealthy realtor and lives down by the Broadmoor in town, which is a very beautiful area in Colorado Springs. And her house is worth $3.5 million. Her monthly payment, Chantel, $7,000 a month, a little bit over $7,000 a month. She calls me up. She says, listen, I'm old enough to get this. I have enough equity. I would rather repurpose that money and buy more real estate or leverage it in another business I have than to keep paying on my mortgage. So this is some of the ways that people use it. Have another lady. She was a retired nurse and she always wanted to visit the national parks. So she had this equity in her home that wasn't doing anything, earning 0%. She took half of it. Now she's earning the regular guaranteed return on that equity, guaranteed, insured. She takes part of that money and she buys one of those Mercedes vans, I think it's a Sprinter van maybe. And she sends me pictures of all these parks she's going around visiting with her little dog. They're visiting all these national parks. So really, what it does is it just gives people more peace of mind, more freedom, more access. It's another bucket of money, another pocket that they can draw money from, except this money isn't taxed and they don't have to repay it. The house repays it.
You know what I like about it? That's your private bank. If you're someone looking to buy a business or scale a business and you have a $4 million, you need $4 million to do that. What a smart way to do it without having to pay closing costs or legal fees. Or are there a lot of fees? Actually, I didn't ask that. There are a lot of fees attached to that reverse mortgage for a high net worth person?
Not really for the jumbo product. So the traditional FHA product, the fees are higher because they have mortgage insurance, 2% of the value of the home. So it makes the closing costs higher. But the jumbo version doesn't have that. They compensate by having a little bit higher interest rate, but the fees are actually lower than a traditional mortgage, actually.
Tony, do you have something you want to say there?
Yeah, I mean, this all sounds pretty cool, actually. Can you kind of model for me what this looks like in a rising interest rate environment? Not that I have a red phone line to Janet Yellen or anything, but what happens when interest rates start bouncing?
So as you probably know, inflation and interest rates are not friends. So rising inflation, rising interest rates, and what that impacts, like any loan, it decreases your borrowing power. So we used to say back in January or late 2021 somebody could borrow about 50% of the value of their home. So basically, Tony, we've lost about 8 to 10% of borrowing power because interest rates have almost doubled
Sure.
in the last 5 months. So yeah, that's a good question.
So, and again, that leads me to, is if you believe that that's only going to get worse or whatever, does that put a sort of light a fire under people a little bit more to get it done now?
I think what's happening is people are nervous about what's going on in the world. They're nervous about the economy. They know taxes are going up in 2025. So they want to protect part of their, some people feel we're in a bubble or a real estate bubble, so they want to protect part of their equity. That's one motivation.
Mm-hmm.
Other is, like I mentioned a minute ago, they might want to draw some money out and get their kids started in the business, or down payment for a home, or help their grandkids, or help charity. So this is a way to just tap into some of that money and use it while you're alive, right? Have it available to coach your kids or your grandkids versus after you pass and they inherit everything and you're not around to guide them or coach them. So it's interesting because more and more wealthy people are seeking me out and seeking out this product because of these very things, the uncertainty in the world, economy, inflation, etc. So they're saying, okay, if I can protect part of my equity now and there's a real estate bubble, I'm going to do it.
Absolutely. I like the point you brought out that to prepare the generation to take over the business. That's where using Jason Mott sort of tie in together, because you're looking at opportunities for a family. They have an expensive piece of property, a $5 or $10 million house. Usually they want to prepare their children for the future, but also build the business, but also prepare the kids and get the right coaching.
Well, Chantel, we all have 3 buckets of money, or 3 pockets we draw money from. We have our income, our wages, we have our assets, our investments, and then we have equity. And equity is kind of the overlooked, untouched asset. But when we tap that, it allows the other 2 to last longer, go further, help more people.
That's important too. That's very important. Anything else you want to add to that? Because I'm sure the audience is yearning for more about this reverse mortgage for the ultra, particularly those who service the ultra high net worth. Any extra things you can add to that for them? Yeah,
I can put this in the chat too, but I've got a great website. It's got some articles and blogs and videos, jumboreversemortgage.co, jumboreversemortgage.co. And it's just designed to educate people and help them see. There's a calculator on there. People can go in and punch in their numbers and see what it might look like for them. But I would just encourage people, don't go off of what your brothers, uncles, neighbors, cousins said, who hasn't researched this at all, but heard somewhere down back in the day that these were bad. Do your own research and find out for yourself, and you're going to see this is really a fantastic tool. It's more like a financial tool than a mortgage, actually. And when you think of it like that, it kind of reframes it and makes more sense.
I imagine you work with a lot of estate attorneys, like the attorney stepping up in a minute here. I guess it works well with that market.
Financial planners and attorneys, definitely, yep.
Yeah, and Kevin, exactly to your point, there's a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of bad information out there. There's stuff in the middle. I think probably, somebody listening to this who may have a little bit of confusion over this. I mean, I'll give you a plug here. They should get in touch with you, find out the real story. And to your point earlier, it's probably better to find that out sooner rather than later. It's always better to know than to not know or wonder. At least that's what I tell my kids.
Last thing I'll say is people always wonder what's the best time to get it. The best time to get it is when you qualify. So financial planners would always coach us, start investing in your 20s. You never get that decade back. You've seen the comparison of somebody who starts in their 20s and somebody who starts in their 30s. They never catch up. Same thing. Start as soon as you get it. Start the equity earning interest for you, compound interest in your favor, because you won't get that time back. And the beautiful thing is the money's, it's like an open-ended account. It's available to you whenever you need it. So get it when you qualify, and you're not a victim if we get a market correction or something happens in your life where you're not generating the income you have and you can't qualify anymore. All kinds of things happen, just like Jason said. I mean, there's constant change in life. So get it as soon as you qualify. That's my best advice.
I want to add
Great.
one other thing to that too, is that a reverse mortgage, unlike a HELOC, you can invest your money with a reverse mortgage. When you get a HELOC, you are limited what you can do with it. You can't take out a HELOC and invest it in the market.
The way I describe a HELOC versus a reverse mortgage line of credit, if you think about baseball, a HELOC's a great tool, but it's like minor leagues. It does certain things well. A reverse mortgage is like a super HELOC. It's like the World Series of baseball. I mean, it's like just this amazing product that is open-ended, can't be canceled or frozen. No payment can be demanded. Your money is going to grow over time. There's a built-in growth factor to it. HELOC doesn't have that. And again, you shift responsibility of paying it back from yourself as the borrower to the home. So those are the big differences.
Okay. So again, I'm going to be the bad guy. The last thought we have, reverse mortgage, it's like being in the major leagues playing in the World Series.
Thank you, Kevin. And one
Dream of
quick
mine.
question. Will you be able to stay for the question and answer at the end of the show here?
Happy to do so.
Excellent, excellent. Well, now we're going to turn it over to attorney Michael Whitty. Mike is a prominent attorney here in the Chicago area. He has, actually, he's called a super attorney from the law firm. He's with the law firm of Freeborn and Peters. You recently quoted on CNBC for estate plans, underfunded estate plans. Anyway, I'm going to turn it over to you, attorney Michael Whitty.
Okay, thanks, Chantel, and thanks Tony. And my line of business is as an estate planning attorney, but I focus on closely held business owners in particular, although I have all kinds of different estate planning clients. What I like to do for them is, get them from an outdated plan or no plan at all to a really solid plan that's up to date and addresses all of their concerns. And I do this using a multidisciplinary approach because I'm a CFP as well as an attorney licensed in Texas, Michigan, Illinois, and now Florida. And so I get there by starting off with just listening a lot, asking a lot of open-ended questions, trying to draw out what their real priorities and concerns are, and then I put together a plan tailored for them that addresses those concerns. And we ultimately get to the outcome of, in terms of the emotional effect of it, it releases and relieves a whole lot of their stress and anxiety because they know that a lot of the things they may have been worried about, perhaps they hadn't even expressed them before talking to me, they now have a plan in place that addresses those concerns.
Can you tell us what you do with businesses in particular and how you help businesses in the family office area?
Yes, in the business owner space, which overlaps a lot with the family office space, I work with clients to prepare succession plans if they do intend to plan to turn over their business to family members, or if they want to have another exit strategy. I'm familiar with doing those as well. And we can also put in place shareholder agreements and buy-sell agreements that will, facilitate transfers and exits that are anticipated or, can be predicted. And I'm able to work with clients who want to do another exit strategy other than leaving their business to family members, if that's what they want to do. But at first I start with asking general questions that I would ask of pretty much anyone about what they want to do with their wealth, how they would like to transfer it safely and preserve it, and put together the answers to the questions every good estate plan needs to answer, which are who gets what, how and when do they get it, and who's in charge. And on the who gets what, if it's a family business owner or a family office, we have to deal with how we transition the ownership of that, in addition to other forms of wealth that they do have.
Let me ask you, what about businesses that want to scale? Are you able to help businesses scale? Like, do you prepare like a private placement offer memorandum for businesses that want to scale themselves in the family office environment?
Well, my firm can do that. That's not something I do myself individually, but we can do that as part of the business planning side as opposed to the estate planning side. And we have several attorneys in my corporate strategy group that would be able to work on scaling things up or issuing new equity, or selling the company, perhaps selling a portion of the company to maybe a private equity firm or a strategic buyer like a competitor.
What about in the cases where someone goes through a divorce as a business owner? Give us some feedback on that type of issue.
Did you ask about a business owner going through a divorce?
Yes.
All right, well, the key there is that unless the couple is going to continue in business together as partners, which is a very rare circumstance that people want to do that in the case of a divorce, then the essential thing there is to start with a very solid valuation of the company and then find a way to divide up the value of that in a way that the business retains continuity and effective leadership and ownership, even though perhaps part of the value needs to be transferred to the non-participating spouse. But I have worked on those kinds of engagements.
What about the issue where there are children involved, and let's say one child has the ability to take over the company and the other kids do not? Do you work in issues? Can you tell us something about that?
Yes, we have to deal with that all the time. If there are one or more children who are able to take over the business and take on leadership and ownership roles, a lot of times not all of them can. It's pretty rare that all of the children want to and are able to continue the family business operations. So we have to plan for what we want to do for the other children so that we provide for them equitably, if not equally, and at the same time preserve that continuity of ownership and leadership in the company so that the company doesn't run into conflicts or other kinds of governance problems because of the transition if the succession of the ownership and the leadership isn't handled properly.
Well, this is probably an interesting question. What about people that have an international issue where maybe their kid heads overseas, or relatives that want to be part of the business but aren't part of it because they're not part of the domestic area where the business is located? I know it's a complicated issue, but how does that work and how does it fit in with the family office for business?
Well, I've worked with clients like that, and what we typically do in that case is because the overseas child is both not going to be participating in the operating company and is overseas, we focus on the kinds of transfers to them that are going to be both good for governance for the family as a whole and also tax efficient. So in a case like that, we might provide a life insurance policy that will go to those children who are overseas. So, it's clean, it's easy, it's tax efficient, and you know that they're going to get it, and it's not going to interfere with the operation of the company.
You do work with a lot of people that you work with financial advisors as well as with other attorneys in putting together these issues with businesses.
Absolutely. I am a big believer in a multidisciplinary approach. I've given a separate presentation on making sure that the estate plan and the financial plan are properly coordinated. I'm a CFP, but I don't actually use that to do financial planning. I got that mainly so I could work better with my clients' other advisors, understanding their roles and their products and services. And that has paid off pretty well.
I see a tie together here in a lot of different areas. What I see is a tie together with reverse mortgages. Have you worked with a reverse mortgage person like Kevin?
Actually, I have. It's been a number of years back, but Kevin's presentation has made me alert to the advances in that field and how, especially in the high net worth space, it can be very valuable. I've long been a big advocate of my high net worth clients having an extra access to some kind of cash funding, even if it's just a standby line of credit, so that they don't have to sell an asset when an unexpected cash need arises.
I'm going to tie you all the way back to Jason Ma too, because when you're talking about businesses and family business owners, how do you work with getting that next generation together? But that's where Jason Ma fits in.
Well, that's a big issue, and you have to take some time, talk with in this case, typically children in the next generation, could be grandchildren, sometimes some nieces and nephews. You have to talk with them, get them all together. Also need to talk with them separately sometimes so that they can feel free to express themselves, and then come up with a governance plan that addresses the concerns of both the family and the business, and make sure that transition and succession are handled smoothly, and you try to minimize conflict as much as possible. I've been a fan of the TV series Succession, and that's a great example of what not to do.
Right. You're about to ask a question, Tony. Go ahead.
Actually, just a point that I'd like to raise, Mike. You talk about business, there's business succession, there's estate planning, and those can be a little bit different. In terms of, and I run into this all the time because this is part of what I do, but valuation issues for estate planning where the purpose or the goal, I guess, of the exercise is to minimize estate taxes. Now, that is not necessarily the value that you would want to go to when you talk to maybe somebody who's looking to buy the business.
That's absolutely right. And we encourage our clients to get an appraisal that's aimed for gift and estate tax purposes pretty early in the process if they're thinking about selling their company. And then we do some income tax and estate tax planning transactions, taking advantage of that lower value before things are sort of cleaned up to get the company ready for sale. And it's already got a lower value than it would on the sale date. And then we do these kinds of gift and estate tax planning transactions. The tax savings can usually pay for all of the legal fees on the entire transaction for selling the company, and probably several times over. So just to put it in that perspective, it really opens up a lot of eyes and encourages our clients to go ahead and do that planning.
So essentially, I'm sorry, Chantel, essentially, you can have sort of two different views of the value of the company depending on what the purpose is. I'm using this as a question to you because I run into this a lot of times with my clients, my own clients who get confused about that. How can it be worth something in this sense and then, when I sell it, something more?
Well, part of it has to do with valuation adjustments, including discounts for lack of marketability and lack of control. And those are real. They reflect real world conditions. And so when you're transferring just a part of a business rather than the entire thing together, those discounts are very much applicable. But then if you are looking at maybe selling the entire company, then you're looking at the enterprise value, which doesn't have those discounts.
Absolutely.
Another point too. I think that what you're talking about too, planning is such an important factor and it should be ongoing because a lot of the things you read about in the papers, the infighting and families squabbling over a business to the point that they wind up losing a lot in the process. Can you share why the importance of planning is not only to set an estate plan, but to follow and have it ongoing?
Well, definitely. With some good planning, both on the succession side and on the estate side, you can greatly reduce the risk of conflict. There's no guarantee you'll avoid it altogether, but you can greatly reduce it, and that can do tremendous amounts of preservation of wealth. So, because when these family fights happen, usually the only people who get richer are the litigators.
Your side of the fence, right? Exactly. What I want to mention here, though, because that happens a lot, is that when the states are drawn out too long, that's when the state also is eaten up, not only by the attorney, but also by the IRS. So when the state, you diminish the value of the property and everything involved in that, whether it's the business or anything they own, if they don't properly plan. So it's important to see your attorney and your estate planners, at least annually.
Well, I do prefer that my clients talk with me annually, even if it's just a sort of a lunch or something like that, just to check in and see how things are going and whether there have been any changes that maybe we need to address in updating the plan. And it's nice if that can be a multidisciplinary lunch. So we're meeting with the CPA there and the chief investment advisor, and we're getting the different perspectives and seeing the whole picture. That can really help, and certainly can help avoid things where you get a conflict between the investment plan and the estate plan.
Yeah. So their estate plan, and as businesses begin to scale themselves, they need to be more frequently to come visit their attorney. Am I right on that one?
Well, I would say once a year at least. Quarterly is good, semi-annually is good. If it's, and we're just talking about a short meeting, kind of see what's in the works and where things are going. In terms of longer meetings, that might be once a year.
I want to ask you one other question. What makes you different? What sets you apart from the other attorneys in your area of law?
Well, I think it's mainly the multidisciplinary approach and the experience with closely held business owners and family offices.
In that is something that I espouse very, very closely. You need somebody and I'm going to use a sports term here, but somebody to be the quarterback, somebody who can bring in or hand off or throw the pass, if you will, and bring in somebody who can, since we have the people on, address the leadership of the next generation, address things like unlocking wealth through whether it's a reverse mortgage or some other thing, bringing in the right people, because one person can't do everything, and nor should they. So I really, like you, I believe in a very interdisciplinary approach, getting people, all on board doing their jobs.
Yeah, we're definitely on the same page there. Thanks, Tony.
Good.
That's one of the benefits of family office. In a family office environment, you're not a one-person show. You are working with a collaborative team of people. There's a lot that I'm a wealth management person. That's what I do, period. I don't conduct law. I don't do reverse mortgages. I prepared my own kid for college, but that's as far as I went with it. It's important to have a collaborative team of people in a family office environment. Anything else you want to add for our audience, Kevin? Mike.
You got 1 minute.
Yes, and just that when we accomplish this, it's often a feeling of great relief that a great plan has been put in place. A good succession plan often takes more than a year to do all the necessary steps, but a good core estate plan can be done in just a few weeks. So it kind of depends on the nature of the engagement.
I will share this with you guys on my own personal experiences at working with a client. One of my clients passed away many years ago. I remember the first time a client of mine passed away. We had done all the planning. I'm one of those planners who plans not just once a year. I meet my clients quarterly. But when she passed away out of the country, came back, found out she passed away, I fell apart. But what part was everything was set in place. The trusts, the wills, all of it, everything was set in place. And I really am grateful that I was trained properly to do things the right way. And I give that to attorneys and all the financial advisors I work with on a team. It's important to work with a team of professionals. You can't do it all on your own. Do we have much time left, or have we hit the top of the hour there?
We have time. We have time for Q&A, and if we could, I'd love to move on to that. Anyone who's going to exit at this point, they can do it now, because we're finishing out the main part of the show. At this point, we're just going to do Q&A, and I'm turning it over to Tony, and I'm going to pop in just for questions. Great.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, one other thing I want to mention, that all people who are attending today will receive an email with a post and a link to this show. And that's all I have to say. Thank you again for coming. For those of you who are here and those who are staying, thank you for staying. Maybe continue on. Tony, it's all yours.
Great. Well, I get to now fulfill sort of a dream of mine, which is to be a talk show host. So my first question coming up is for Jason. Somebody wrote in and wanted to ask about the role of the concept of humility in your process.
Absolutely.
I'd just love to hear you comment on that.
Sure. I'm going to give you a tool. One of the, I write for Impact Wealth magazine, and also wrote an article for the Family Office magazine recently. I wrote for Forbes quite a bit. I got 1.7 million views. So one article I highly recommend to every single person in this forum, audience, and also co-speakers, The Art of Mentoring the Next Gen and Succession Planning. And you can find that on my LinkedIn posts. I encourage you to connect with me or go to my website, okay? And part of that, I mentioned about the value of starting early, build family culture, invest in human capital, okay, including core skills, and raise next gen right. Don't overspoil them. There are 56-year-old babies out there. And in fact, Wendy Kraft, a good friend of mine, single family office, C-suite leader, and she's pretty well known. She says that in New York City. Welcome vulnerability. Okay, that's what ties into humility. Humility, gratitude, compassion, integrity, a bit of humor. Don't be serious all the time. Okay, I'm very playful with my own kids, with my students, with my adult friends as well. Joke around and start early. Those are part of the core, in addition to what I talked about: resilience, adaptability, or resourcefulness, and determination, tenacity. Those are core within, wrapped around, by other soft skills, and then you have hard skills integrated with that as well. Those are core things. Humility is part of that. Compassion is really humility in action with other people. Love your neighbors, right? Love others. And the other soft skills I like to share is very important, is make sure that the next gen, even leading gen, it doesn't matter whether you're already a billionaire. I mean, I advise billionaires, okay? It doesn't matter where you're already a multi-centimillionaire. We always have certain things to improve on. For example, Jeff Bezos, the second wealthiest person on earth, he said the most important soft skill is really intellectual humility. What does it mean by that? Is that you're humble enough to recognize that you still need to improve and learn all the time, and you don't hesitate to do so. Not get all wrapped up or tied up by impolitely fixed mindset or limiting beliefs or big ego, okay? Big ego is a very negative. Have to really work on that. Especially with the next gen. I tell you, I'm surrounded by bright Gen Zs all the time and millennials. They are very highly intellectual, okay? If they don't like you, they don't want to connect with you. They're very picky with adults. You have to learn how to communicate with them. And that also tests the part of your 4S and 3EQ you need to work on: critical thinking, strategic thinking, problem-solving skills, a bit of creativity, communication skills, collaboration, teamwork, people, social skills, okay? Yep. And then within communication, one-on-one, listening, self-talk, public speaking, writing, all those are important soft skills wrapped around with your own functional, with your hard skills. Does
excellent.
That answer your question?
No, that's excellent. And it goes to something that I've always thought which is, you never want to, if you're very intent on being the smartest person in the room, who are you going to learn from? That's something my dad always told me. Exactly. Well, that's great, Jason. Thanks for that. One question we have for Kevin is, in a real estate market with rising values, can you, quote unquote, refinance at a larger credit line when values change?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we're certainly seeing that the last few years. Last year, about half, not quite half of the reverse mortgages that were taken out were refinancing an existing reverse mortgage. People taking advantage of the appreciation, people taking advantage of the lower rates, basically more borrowing power, more access to funds. So really, another way to think about it too is you could roll another debt. So your house becomes the responsible party to repay debt that you have from other places.
Great. And what is the largest transaction possible? I mean, I'm wondering, is the sky the limit, or is there a number there that?
Yeah. So we used to say, 50% of the value of the home. Now it's more like 40. So lenders will go up to 10 million. So you could borrow 4 million, but above that, it's case by case. So I've heard of transactions as high as 35 million value. Keep in mind, there's two sides of reverse mortgage. About 95% of the market is the FHA version, which people have heard about for 60 years. The proprietary is about 5%, and there's a handful of companies that do it. So I would say case by case as far as the largest transaction, but we know we can do 10 for sure.
Okay, wonderful. And question for Mike. What are the roles and issues of trusts in family office business succession plans? How do trusts play into the equation?
Trusts can play a very important role. For one thing, it provides for smoother transition of ownership in the event of someone's death because you avoid having stock go through probate. One thing that I like to do is do bifurcation of ownership between voting and non-voting stock. The non-voting stock is getting the benefits of ownership, including distributions and dividends, but it doesn't get to vote, and it can be held over a broader range of beneficiaries within the family, while the voting shares might be held by fewer individuals or even another trust for that controlling group of beneficiaries, the ones who are actually going to be controlling the voting power. So I think trusts have a very valuable role to play.
Great. And I'm gonna jump back to Jason for a second and give sort of one of my own takes on it. One of the things I've been taught for a long time is, you know, and this is part of my education and upbringing, but you know, there's sort of in any coaching environment, there are sort of steps to things. First of all, you have to establish a relationship between the coach and the person being coached. And then that relationship leads you to trust. And once you have established trust, only then can you challenge that person. And I think probably we can all think of a situation where maybe we did not trust somebody and that person tried to challenge us. And it falls on deaf ears. But Jason, maybe I see you nodding your head. Maybe you can comment on that.
Tony, I love you for the wisdom of your question and the timing and the integration within what's relevant here. That ties into relationships between the leading gen and next gen and succession planning. And so when I coach my students as an example, or mentor or coach in the leading gens as well, their parents or as partners or whatever, relationship is key, man. You know, besides achieving your tangible outcomes, right? You know, wealth preservation, wealth enhancement, risk mitigation, relationship. Without that relationship, why on earth would a boomer leading gen transfer his $1 trillion, $1 billion to the next gen that he doesn't like? They don't have a relationship. No one's going to do that. Okay, I prefer to do that giving pledge thing than to give most of my money to my kids, right? So at the end of the day, I'm sure all of us could empathize, could resonate, is really peace of mind. Everyone wants peace of mind, especially the leading gen. They want peace of mind. They want relationship. And that's part of the very, very powerful byproduct benefit that I am very conscious in delivering when I coach my next gen or whomever, right? Along the way, when I raise their 4S, their visionary story, the soft skills, the state of mind, the strategies, and make them execute them better and raise and elevate their pragmatic, emotional, social leadership intelligence, naturally the relationships within the families between family office executives or the principals, right, get better. How powerful is that? Because everyone wants a peace of mind, especially given the backdrop of such turbulence, the war, the craziness, China, the geopolitical, situations, right? I gave talks about that as well. So when I mentor one-on-one or group coaching with my audience or with my student, I'm very, very big on relationship. I maybe it's my skill, right? I know how to build relations with people very quickly. When I meet a stranger, I know I could get them to open up to me very quickly, tell me secrets, right? There's a rapport, that relationship. Then you have the basis, they will listen to you. Then they trust you. They tell me secrets, then I know how to help them navigate and upgrade a skill or move in this direction, maybe make another pivot or redirect. So in a way, I'm like a soft skills mindset, a quarterback, right? So at the end of the day, help them create a more positive, more energizing, empathetic with integrity, better glue in a family.
Right.
It's so important.
Oh, excellent, wonderful. Well, I think we're bumping up on our end point here. This has been great. Lots of information flying back and forth. And we really appreciate everybody being on today and everybody who has, listened in and watched. And I love your questions. Couldn't get to them all, but we will endeavor to address all of them at some point. Chantel, any closing thoughts?
I wanted to add that the